Welcome back, everybody, to the TactileView training tutorial episode, if you will. To this time, we're going to start getting into the toolbar, and so this is where we're actually starting to really create and design tactile graphics. So before I kind of dive too much into this, I want to take this opportunity to talk about another way that you can access these tools. So primarily, I'm going to be talking about using these tools in the visual method, so clicking and dragging things out with my mouse and stuff like that. But all these tools over on the toolbar over on the left, these are all your kind of main design tools here. They can also be accessed via the drawing tools or the graphing menus and things like this up here at the top. And one thing that's really cool, and to my knowledge, no other tactile graphics program can boast this as well, is you can actually do this accessibly with a screen reader. Now, as I imagine you're probably aware, drawing, or the digital drawing I should say, is something that is inherently inaccessible, right? Being able to draw things out with a mouse pointer and stuff like that. TactileView is one of the very few, or again really only tactile graphics program I'm aware of that actually takes a crack at letting you do this stuff accessibly. So as I'm talking about doing things, throughout this series on the toolbar and clicking and dragging things out with a mouse, you could also do it via the menu system and TactileView's placement tools. TactileView's placement tools are really cool because, again, they would let you place something accessibly with a screen reader, but they would also, aside from screen reader and accessibility, they'd also allow you to be very precise with your measurements as well. So even if you have drawn something out with your mouse visually and you want to say, oh, I want this to be precisely, this length by this length or something like that, you can do that using these. So just as a quick kind of example, visually, I can go to my toolbar, click on the draw square tool, and I can draw out a square like that. Now maybe I want that square to be exactly 2 inches by 2 inches or something like that. I can use TactileView's placement tools in the toolbar, and I can adjust that. Or again, I can do this via the toolbar up here in a screen reader. So if I had a screen reader, I could press Alt, and I believe it's T for tools. I come down here to the draw/square rectangle option, press Enter or spacebar on that. Then it would bring up my positioning and placement tools. So it didn't even offer me the option when I'm doing it through the menus to even do this with a mouse. It's going to do this all via the placement tools. Now again, if you've done it with a mouse, you can still get to the placement tools, but if you're trying to do this via a screen reader, you could do it through the menu system, which take you right to the placement tools and let you accessibly place it. So what it does is it offers you first the option of position of the upper left corner of said object. In this case, I've done draw square, but it could be a line, a triangle, some sort of polygon, etc. So what it lets me do is choose where this is placed in relation to the distance from the left edge, and the second option says in relation to the distance from the top edge. So let's say I want my square to start 1 inch in from the left-hand side, and if I tab, we'll also do 1 inch in from the top edge there. And then I'll tab down, and we can choose for our sizing if we want to scale things, meaning scale proportionally, meaning that when you scale, say, your width, it also scales your height to match. Or if you want to stretch, you can choose that as well, which would basically mean you could scale your size and your width independently of one another. Then if we keep tabbing down, we'll have the option to type in our width, and if we tab again, we'll have the option to tab in our height. So for my square, I want this to be exactly 2 inches wide by tabbing exactly 2 inches tall, which it auto-populated 2 inches for my height because I chose to keep the ratio or to scale correctly. And then I just tab the OK button, press Enter, and voila, it has placed a 2 inch by 2 inch square in 1 inch in from the left-hand side and 1 inch in from the top in relation to the top left corner of my square. And so, again, you could use a screen reader to go ahead and place those all for me, just like that. And now, of course, as you're doing this with a screen reader, you're going to have to be spatially aware. So, for example, if you wanted to add 2 squares and you wanted, the second square to be just to the right-hand side of the left square, you have to think, okay, my left square started 1 inch in from the left and 1 inch in from the top. It was 2 inches long. Okay, so now we've gone in from the left-hand side. We come in 3 inches already for the kind of placement of it and the length. So I want a little bit of separation between the 2 squares. I need to probably add an extra inch there. So my next square probably needs to start 4 inches in from the left and 1 inch in from the top to make it in the same kind of height placement or level, same level as the last one. And so then you could go at it and say, okay, I want this one to be 4 inches in from the left, 1 inch in from the top, and I want it to be another 2 inch by 2 inch square or something like that. So you have to keep all this in mind, and think your way kind of through it as you go. But a lot of the drawing you can do can be done via the placement tools and that accessible placement with a screen reader. So I won't say everything, but the large majority of stuff can be done that way. There are some things like, for example, freehand drawing where you have to click and drag and it draws where your mouse goes. That is something that unfortunately is just completely inaccessible. But a lot of these drawing tools that I'm going to be talking about can be done accessibly through the drawing tools menus above using TactileView's placement tools. So with that long-winded introduction, let's go ahead and get into our first tool on the toolbar. So the first tool on the toolbar looks like a Braille T next to a print T. This is going to be our text label tool. So now when we click on this, and this is going to be a common theme, so make note of this. When you click on this, there's a kind of little sub-menu or sub toolbar, if you will, that pops up right next to my existing toolbar. And on here we have a handful of different items. So the first one, and this is kind of neat too, you can also hover your mouse over it and it will give you a text description. So if it's not totally obvious based on the icon what this does, you can also hover your mouse over for a text description. But this first one here is Braille label via keyboard input. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and click wherever on my document I want to begin typing my Braille label. And I'm going to write, this is a test, okay? And so you will notice, I say that, let me zoom in on this a tiny bit. You'll notice that it wrote this is a test, and it contracted. I got the this contraction, I got the ST contraction there, because I have a contracted Braille table selected. And so it's auto contracted for me on the fly as I typed to grade 2 Braille. So it is actually, I wrote this as THIS, IS, TEST. I wrote it out, and it auto contracted to Braille for me. So maybe if you were somebody who your Braille skills or your contraction skills aren't that great, this is actually going to do it for you, which is super cool, provided you have a contracted Braille table selected. If you had an uncontracted table, of course it would be uncontracted. And if I had done a capital, I would have got my capital indicator. If I'd done a number, I would have given my number indicator, all that. It's actually auto converting or auto translating into Braille for you on the fly as you type. So your first option for Braille labeling is doing it just like that. Now, this and all the other Braille labels we're going to talk about, once they have been placed, you can go click on them and drag them around if you want to as well, or you can resize them so if you want them to kind of stack on top of each other. So don't worry if your placement is off a little bit at the beginning, you can go back and you can drag them around, move it around. And TactileView also has accessible tools for looking and finding objects such as your text label and repositioning those using the positioning tool. So you can Braille label like that. Going back to our Braille label tool, we have a second option. This is our next icon down in this kind of little sub toolbar, if you will. And this one, again, if you hover your mouse over it, will give you a text description. And this one says Braille keyboard input. So this is going to be 6-key entry. So we'll go ahead and click on that, and then we'll click wherever on our document we want to begin our Braille label. And then using FDS as dots 1, 2, 3 and JKL as dots 4, 5, 6, we can 6-key in anything we want. This could be, of course, literary. It could be a mix of literary and math. 6-key just kind of lets you do anything, right? When you're typing in using the first Braille labeling method and you try to maybe write some math or something like that, you need to distinguish, your literary from, like, say, your Nemeth code or something like that. But for 6-key, it doesn't care. You can 6-key anything you want. So I don't profess to be the most proficient 6-keyer in the world, so I'm just going to write the word hello. There we go. I was able to hack out hello right real quick. So I just Braille labeled hello with 6-key. But again, you could do whatever you want here. So if you are a 6-key whiz, you can 6-key in whatever you want using FDS and JKL as your Braille keyboard. And again, we can click and move this label wherever we want, just like before. And there are some little helpful green lines that will pop up visually on the screen to help you line up your Braille labels with one another as well, so you can make sure your text is all aligned if you're doing a whole bunch of different Braille labels and you want to make sure everything's lined up. Going back to our Braille label tool again, we have a third Braille label option, and this is kind of our final option for writing Braille labels, and this one is specifically for math. So as where kind of the first one where you're just typing in, letting it contract for you on the fly, that's more specifically for literary or literary numbers, I suppose you could do. The second one, which is the Braille keyboard Braille keyboard entry, you can Braille keyboard whatever you want. That could be literary or math. But finally, the last one is just for math alone. And now for this, you actually have to have another program. So some people might be familiar with the program MathType. So MathType it's actually a mainstream program. Let me just open up mine here. It's a mainstream program. It is a separate program as well. But MathType is a equation building program. And so professors, teachers, things like that use MathType to create, I'm not going to update right now, no thank you, to create properly visually formatted math. So things that are, a little more difficult to just simply type in on a keyboard, this can help you. So, like, for example, how do you type, like, square root if you're on a keyboard? Like, lots of people don't know that. Pardon me. How do you do, maybe to the power of, most people don't know that you use the up caret or something like that. So this program can help you visually create that more complicated formatted math and then just paste it into TactileView, and it will convert it to Nemeth or the Braille code of your choice automatically for you. So, MathType has, again, basically every single possible symbol you'd ever want for even really advanced mathematics. Depending on your version, if you're paying for this, you will also have some kind of little sections here with it, which they've pre-built some of the most common formulas. So they have an algebra tab, which has like the square root of a to the second plus b to the second. That's a pretty common one. A limit thing. Different algebraic formulas here that, again, are very common. They've just kind of given you buttons that you can just paste in. Bam, you got the whole entire algebraic formula right there. You don't have to recreate it. They also have the same thing for like statistics and matrices and trigonometry and geometry and more. You can even create your own custom tabs if you wanted to of common stuff that you might use. But again, they have every other possible symbol under the sun you'd want, and you can also come in here and edit these. So, in this algebraic formula, lots of times you know a couple of these numbers. So, like, maybe let's say we know b is 2. We'll come in here and we'll adjust b to 2, right? And so once you're done, you've got your equation there. You can simply highlight it, right-click, and hit copy, or you can hit cut, or you can press Control-A to highlight all and Control-C to copy if you want to. And then you come back over here into TactileView, go back to that Braille label tool. We'll choose the third option, which is Math Input. Again, we'll click on our document wherever we want to start. And it brings up a little bit of a different window this time. This time it brings up a window which, for me, it lets me choose my mathematical notation here, which again has defaulted to Nemeth. If you haven't watched the introductory video, you might want to go back and watch that where we made it default to Nemeth. But they do all have some other math codes in here as well. I want Nemeth, so I'll leave it set to that. And then I hit this button that says paste in math equation from clipboard. So clipboard is where things copy to when you've copied them on your computer. So I have copied that. Oops, something popped up there. I've copied that and I hit paste in math equation. It shows me how that would be written out in just text. It shows me a window with the special, actually properly visually formatted math, and it also shows me the Braille version of this, which should be accurate, but even if there was any inaccuracies, you also could come in and you can 6-key inside of this Braille window to correct that if you need to. Or if you want to correct the text representation, you could type in there with your keyboard as well. And when you're happy with everything, you hit the OK button, and voila, there it goes. It has converted that complicated math equation into, in my case, Nemeth Math for me automatically by simply pasting it in. So again, MathType, you do have to pay for this. This is a separate add-on. So if you don't have this, you definitely could opt to 6-key in your math or something like that. I highly recommend this program. It's not too horribly expensive. I think it's like $60 a year or something like that. But it's a really wonderful program. If you don't have that, point being is there's other ways to do it, but this is really simple and really easy to do it this way. So there we go. It's converted into Nemeth, and that is the kind of third and final way to add Braille labels. So again, to recap, we can just type things in and have it auto-contract to it for us on the fly as we type. We can 6-key things in, or we can do paste in math from the MathType program. There are 2 more things on this Braille label tab that I want to talk about. One is the alignment grid. And so that you might have noticed as I was clicking and dragging around some of these labels, there is these little green lines that pop up to help me, that show me when one label is lined up with the next label. And so again, that can be helpful for, you know, just lining up your braille labels, making sure everything's in line with one another. If you don't like those, going back to the text label tool, there's that fourth item or fourth icon that has, it kind of looks like a little, I don't know, little page with some braille on it, a little green line with an arrow that pops up. I imagine, again, this is probably going to be really hard to see over a Zoom video, but it's there. If you hover your mouse over it, it will say, it'll pop up in a moment, a little box that says switch text alignment off. And so you can turn that on or off there if you'd like. And the final thing on here, which honestly I don't do too terribly much, but this might be helpful for some folks, is if you have a whole bunch of text labels already in a text file, you can import an entire text file with labels and it will just bring them all in, and you could just rearrange them as you like. And that's the fifth and final icon for our text label tool. And that is it for adding braille labels. So this is how you're going to label up all of your tactile graphics, whether that be with literary braille, so if you want to 6-key in literary or math, or if you wanted to bring in math equations using math type, you can use any of those different methods there to bring those all in. You can click and drag them around, you can stack them, you can resize them, and you can place them, you know, all over your graphic as works best for you. Okay, and so we'll wrap up here and we'll catch you in the next video. We're going to talk about importing pictures into TactileView.